Welcome to Barnyard Language, honest talk about running farms and raising families. We are Katie and Arlene, an Iowa sheep farmer and an Ontario dairy farmer, with 6 kids, 2 husbands, and a whole lot of chaos between us.
While this is a podcast for farm families, sometimes our content isn't for the whole family. So kick off your boots, reheat your coffee, and join us for some Barnyard Language.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Barnyard Language. Katie, what's happening in Iowa these days? Did you sell those cows? How are the kids? What's the news?
Should have sold the kids, kept the cows. Sold cows, which is good. I guess it was 3 of them. We have a little bottle calf. Super freaking cute. His mama's a nut, so this is the last calf she's having here. I don't appreciate being chased. I don't run. I don't want to run. I don't intend to start running. And I sure as hell don't intend to start running in front of cattle.
Yeah. And then you're like running and then potentially having to climb something if she's really going after you, right? then it becomes hurdles.
Yeah. And she's not had good luck with calves. None of it has been her fault. But you have to be really spectacularly awesome for us to put up with crazy.
Yeah.
And
you don't need to keep giving her chances.
Crazy and not spectacularly awesome is not worth it.
Agreed.
Other than that, we took the kids to the Children's Museum in La Crosse yesterday, which was a lot of fun. And mostly just hanging around, doing the things.
How was you took a week off of your paid work to do other work. How do you feel about your physical space and your mental space after that week?
My physical space is actually worse because I got, halfway into a bunch of projects. My mental space is much better. I'm working on making a habit of paying more attention to when I'm feeling burned out or overwhelmed before the shit hits the fan. It's something crazy and new I'm trying, where I stop before I'm absolutely forced to. And that was really good. So there's that.
But now there's piles of things all over.
Yeah, because I'm like halfway through my project because my project was a lot bigger than I thought it would be. Which is kind of like the story of my life right there.
Right. I got halfway into something and realized it was a lot more work than I thought. Kind of like a podcast, right?
Yeah, you could just put that on my headstone. This was more work than I expected.
Yeah. Seemed like a good idea when I started.
Exactly. Seemed like a good idea at the time. That's exactly it. Other than that, my favorite cow, the one who was a gift from my in-laws when we got engaged, the rest of our cows calved about 3 months ago, except for the crazy one. And my favorite cow, who always calves in the dead of winter so that she gets to spend the winter in the barn. For anyone who wants to think that cows can't be that smart, she's done it enough years that it cannot possibly be an accident at this point. So, we're waiting. She's in the barn. We're waiting. She's 13 this year, I want to say, so she's getting old enough that she just gets to spend time in the barn whenever she wants. And I mean, let's face it, she's a pet. She's not she throws beautiful calves. She's a good cow, but she's a pet.
Yeah.
I can admit that.
We have a 13-year-old cow right now, and my husband calls her his emotional support cow because she got a lot more chances to get in calf than just about any other animal in the barn this round. And she gets to stay in a pen all year round where everyone else is in stalls, and they go outside and she does not because she hates going outside. Even in the summer, she was outside for a little while because we needed the pen for other things, and she would just stand at the door and pout.
Oh, that's so sad. Yeah, Rose was actually a free martin. She's a bull twin, so she wasn't supposed to ever calve. But we got her bred AI one time when we had somebody else out here AIing some other cows, and she fed 8 calves on her first lactation because we would buy a bottle calf and she would adopt it, and she was feeding 2 calves at a time until she had 8 calves. Not all at once, obviously, Even for her, that would be a lot.
I was picturing them lining up.
But for her to successfully and happily feed 8 calves, the one embarrassing part was that she's an Ayrshire, so she's red and white, and all of the calves we gave her were red and white or red. I think maybe she even had some black and white Holsteins, but we gave her a solid black calf, and she refused to feed it. And then we tied her twice and fed her, and then she was like, "Oh well, if I still get feed, she'll feed anything at this point."
Okay, yeah.
So that's
Fine. I'll feed that one too.
I did have to laugh yesterday, I guess it was. I took our bucket bottle calf on a little bit of a walk as I was moving him from one pen to the other, and I got a cute photo of him trying to nurse off the oil pan on a tractor that was in the yard. Because it's orange, it's vaguely udder shaped too. It's worth a try.
Might get something out of it. You never know.
Yeah, it's worth checking out. How are things at your place, Arlene?
Things are going okay. Yeah. Last week the kids went back to school, so one of my projects was de-Christmasifying the house, which kind of like you said, seems like not that big of a deal. Like I just put all this stuff out, I can put it away again, but it feels like it takes forever, and then I want to throw everything in the garbage and just completely purge my entire house while I'm at it. But yeah, did that job, and kind of just some catch up stuff that gets put on the back burner when the kids are all home for the break. And it was actually kind of a quiet-ish week. We didn't have any interviews booked because Katie was taking the week off, and so podcast stuff was light, and farm stuff, just the regular routine and a few extra jobs, but nothing major. So yeah, it was kind of a quiet week, which I'm okay with. And then this coming week, my husband and I are going to the Dairy Farmers of Ontario annual meeting conference thing. So it's downtown Toronto. So we get to pretend that we're city people for a couple of days. We'll take the train with some friends and go stay downtown. So it's a whole new vibe, but we're still hanging out with country people. So we definitely stand out when you're in the underground tunnels by the train station and the subway and everything. You can pick out the farmers still.
Is it the vague look of terror or the fact that you can smell the dairy disinfectant on them? Or both?
A little bit of terror, more plaid probably than usual. I'm still wearing their lanyards even when they leave the conference rooms, which is one of my pet peeves. It's like, take off the sign that tells people that you're not from here.
Yeah. I get that, for work we have to wear lanyards on the rare occasion that we go into the office, but you're not supposed to wear them outside of the building because it's a security risk, which is fair. But then, like, what am I supposed to do with this lanyard so I don't lose it so that I can get back in the building? And it's not something I do often enough for it to be like a habit that you just take it off.
Yes, yeah, you don't have a routine that it just, goes in this pocket and you always know where it is.
I found on work trips I put air tags on everything because on our New York trip this year I made a sprinting trip back to the hotel every morning for something critical that I had forgotten. So now there's an air tag.
And that's how many mornings?
6.
6. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we have lanyards and physical security keys and laptops and charging cords and.
Yeah. So normally you just walk into your office and there it all is. But when you actually have to move it.
Well, that's exactly it. I never move anything. So even like on our trip this fall, I realized I don't know my computer password because it's programmed into my keyboard, but my keyboard was at home. That was delightful.
Yes, the security people really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not at home and I swear I'm who I say I am. No, please let me into my computer.
I upgraded my hacking skills on my own laptop, so that was fun.
Are you a security risk?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, why don't we go ahead and introduce our guest for this week?
All right, sounds good.
Today we are excited to be talking to Nikki Fitzgerald, who is joining us from Texas. And Nikki, we start each of our interviews with the exact same question. So this is your intro to our listeners. And we always ask, what are you growing? So that can be kids and crops and livestock and all kinds of other stuff. So Nikki, what are you growing?
Well, thank you again for having me on today. I appreciate that. And I am living on a farm and ranch in Southeast Texas, and we have a cattle ranch, and we have rice. We have grown wheat in the past, and currently we're in the process of putting winter grass in. So, and I do have feral children and a feral husband. So, but yeah, so I've been part of the farming community for I guess 17 years now. So I am married into it.
Yes, yes, you're growing a lot of different things. So, being cow people, usually one of the questions that people want to know about is what kind of cows and, kind of approximately how many. I know talking size of farms is tricky, but, just so we have a concept of the scale that you guys are working with.
Right, right. So we're doing a cow calf operation. Ours are more of the Brahmin crossed cattle. We live in marsh in southeast Texas, and we cannot grow the fuzzy cattle, is what I call them, because they do not survive well in our part of the region. So we have more of the Brahmin, more soggier cross cattle on our ranch, and we have anywhere from 300 to 400 head at a time. So that's cows, and then of course when you add in calves, 200-300 calves with that as well. So it's quite an operation. So.
And then in terms of landscape, can you kind of describe, like, are they grazing a lot of the time, or some of the time they on in lots, or like what kind of structure, in terms of how they move around the ground?
Well, if you've ever heard of the term saltgrass steakhouse, they live in the salt marsh. So they are our marsh monsters. They survive some pretty harsh conditions. Some of them live literally out in the salt grass and marsh and water and mosquitoes and stuff. I know that sounds harsh, but that's what they're used to. We, in Texas, there's not really barns and stuff like that on our calf operation. Now we do have a smaller barn with our show cattle because my kids raise livestock. So like if you see my videos, you'll see a smaller barn with like a few cows. That's the show cattle. But out on the ranch, they're roaming free, like as if they're wild on you know, a ranch property. So, marsh monsters.
And so Katie and I are both from places where obviously you can't grow rice. So I know that there are lots of people who grow rice in North America, but I think that, like, for someone who's from a northern climate, often that picture is like rice paddies, in Asian countries. So can you explain a little bit to me, and maybe to some other listeners who don't have rice in their area, what rice production looks like where you are?
Okay, so yeah, since we live in an area where marsh and water is like we literally our average rain is 60 inches a year. And that's just unfathomable to some people because some people's like average rain's like 5 inches a year. But like for us, right now we're considered a drought. I mean, we haven't had rain in 3 or 4 weeks. Typically in October, we've had at least 12 inches of rain, and we haven't had any this fall so far. But with rice, obviously, it requires a lot of water, and we have a lot of water where we live. And you start planting rice in March. March 15th is kind of the start date. That's usually when our like insurance companies and things like kind of approve that date. A lot of farmers will start earlier if the conditions are right. And if you can get that rice planted in March, April timeframe, then typically you would be harvesting the rice in July, August. And you start off rice when you plant it. We'll actually drill the rice in. That's how some people can actually fly the rice over with crop dusters, because if it's really, really wet, you can't really take a tractor across the field to plant it. So they'll actually fly it across. We've done both. But typically we drill it in with a drill, and then we do something called flushing. So you literally will just flush water across the fields. And once the seed, starts sprouting and the rice gets a certain height, and it's tall enough to be out of the water, then you hold water on it, and the water stays on the rice until about 2 weeks before harvest, and then you drain the water off and you harvest the rice. So, and it's a lot like wheat harvest. A lot of people, when they see my videos, are like, "This is a lot what we do with wheat, just minus all the water." I'm like, "Yeah, we use the same combine and header for wheat in our area as well." So.
Nikki, does all rice grow the same, like, there's basmati and jasmine and long grain white. Is long grain white secretly something else? Because that doesn't really sound like a thing.
No, it all grows this kind of, I mean, it all starts out as brown rice. So whenever it's harvested, it comes out of the field as rough rice. So it has like a hole on it, kind of like a potato skin. You know how a potato has brown skin around it? And we'll send the rice to the dryers and they dry it down to a certain moisture. And then it goes into a mill and that mill takes the hull off. And that's where you get your rice bran, is that hull. And when they mill it that once and they take the hull off, it's brown rice. And then when they mill it again, it's white rice. So that's, and then, you have long grain, you have different varieties. Obviously, you have long grain, medium grain, basmati, jasmine. Our area is mostly long grain rice, is what we typically grow in our area. California, you'll get a lot of jasmine rice. So
It's so weird to me to think of, because we grow corn and beans and the process sounds fairly similar with the drying and that, but like when you hear about a crop that I only interact with as food, or, like we talked to a cotton farmer and my only experience of cotton is like as a finished thing. It's so interesting to hear the backstory of that because it's not something I really think about otherwise, I guess. Like,
And what's crazy, a lot of people don't realize is 80% of the rice in the United States comes from that's consumed by Americans is made, in America, produced in America. So everyone's like, oh, rice comes from China. Actually, no, your rice is probably coming from America if you're eating it in America. So a lot of our rice actually is shipped to Mexico because in Mexico, that long grain rice is what they use for Mexican dishes and stuff like that. So
okay, so one other question, getting back to the cows here, because we have fuzzy cows where I live. That is it called a dewlap? That wingledinger under their chin? Is it as soft as it looks like it'd be?
oh yeah, it is. I sit there and just rub it all the time.
I mean, I feel like I've probably seen a few Brahma cattle, but never like close up enough to go up and like rub one's chin. And it seems kind of rude if it's not your cows to be like, just gonna hop out of my car here and go rub this cow. Like,
Yeah, and Brahmins are they're fickly. I mean, there's no in between with them. It's either dog gentle or they're gonna kill you. Like that's that's Brahmins. With my daughter show them as livestock. Is for they're gonna show for the major livestock show two Brahmins. We've got a red Brahmin and a gray Brahmin, and one of them's name's Tweety Bird, and one of them's name is Reba McIntyre, and they're both dog gentle. I mean, you can just go up the Tweety Bird loves you just go up there. She puts her chin up and she's like, come right here, like rub that. And there's some of them you can go out there and you just kind of put your hand up there, and next thing you know, you're flying across with
You hope that when you pick them early in the season for showing that you've got one of the gentle ones, right?
You can tell. I mean, you can tell when you walk up them to a pasture, if they let you come up to you and just kind of slightly get near them, you know that they're going to probably be okay. If you walk up to a pasture and they put that head down and they chase you across the field, you're like, that one's not going to break.
Yeah, doesn't matter how pretty.
That not how pretty it is. My child's going to be drawn across the arena with that one.
Yeah.
well, I feel like the nice part about cow calf too is, for us at least, a lot of times, if the mama's crazy, that baby's going to be crazy too. Which also holds true in my family. So, you know,
There's a bit of that in dairy cattle too. I know we've got some families that are a little bit more on the crazy and kicking side, so that you kind of expect like, oh, that's so and so's granddaughter. Like, yeah, look out when she freshens, and let's see if she's gonna try and take your head off when you put the milker on the first few times.
Yeah, yeah. We've bought a couple of dairy cows in the past for bottle calves, and they don't last in our part of the world. Like our dairy cow lasted like a year before she didn't make it. So just yeah, we're not used to dairy cows in our area of the world. My daughter went to Indianapolis and she actually got to tour her first dairy, when she went to the National FFA convention last week. She's like, I've never seen this before. I'm like, honestly, baby girl, I've been doing agriculture for a very long time, and I've honestly never been to a dairy either. So we're just used to the beef cattle around here.
Yeah, that's right.
Our goal as podcasters is to create a program that makes you feel less alone as a farming, ranching, or homesteading parent, but we can't do it alone.
Supporting Barnyard Language on Patreon helps us cover production costs and ensures the future of the show, but you'll also gain access to exclusive perks and behind-the-scenes content.
Your support enables us to continue bringing you the thought-provoking conversations and inspiring stories week after week. So if you find value in what we're doing and want to be part of the Barnyard community, head over to patreon.com/barnyardlanguage and choose a tier that suits you.
So what is your ag background like then, Nikki?
Growing up, I did not grow up on a farm. I grew up in a redneck neighborhood. The one where you drive through the neighborhood and all the daddies are ramping up their hot rods in the front yard, and all the kids are running around barefooted, and we're out in the mud and stuff. My mom and dad had, an acre or so of land, and I did have a horse. So I started off I was in 4-H and FFA. I had a horse, and that was my project, and I did rodeo. So I did flags in the rodeos. I ran barrels. I did reining, and drill team was my favorite in the rodeos. I don't know if you ever seen like the Catalina Cowgirls or that where they do the patterns and stuff. That's what I did. So I carried flags, did patterns, and traveled with the rodeo team and stuff. When I was in high school, I had a fetish for farmers. So I started dating a farmer in high school. They owned a rice farm. And his daddy taught me how to run a grain cart when I was 16. So during the summer, his dad would pay my brother and I both to actually run their grain carts. And so I actually had some familiarity with rice before I went off to college. And I dated that same guy all the way to college. And then that guy and I decided, we weren't meant to be together. But before we broke up, he actually introduced me to my future husband. He's like, oh, there's another rice farmer here at Texas A&M. We should go we should go meet him. And
Maybe he's a better fit.
yeah, he was a better rice farmer.
The first one trained you.
And it's a small world because now the guy that I was dating in high school, his brother actually is married the person that's neighbor to our family now. So they're still involved in our family. So the brother of that guy that I dated actually farms right next to us. Yeah, so that's my agriculture background. So, and then I went to Texas A&M. I wanted to be a veterinarian, so I majored in animal science. So I have an animal science bachelor's and master's degree. And then decided that school was not for me. So I actually became a teacher, an ag teacher and a biology teacher, and married my husband, or now husband for 17 years, and moved to the farm. And so I was a teacher for 12 years and then moved to my current job that I am now, which is, I'm a county agent now. So I still do agriculture, but still farming and stuff. So
lots of different connections along the path for sure. So one thing I have been thinking about lately, we're recording this at the end of October. I don't think it's going to come out for maybe until December or January. I'm not sure. I should have mentioned that before we started recording, but the time that we're recording, we're kind of at the tail end of hurricane season. And same as rice, Katie and I don't have to worry about hurricanes. Or, sometimes you get the tail end where it's a little bit rainy for a few days. But hurricanes, especially this year, seem to be kind of top of mind for a lot of people. And I know that your farm has been directly affected in the past. So for people who never have to deal with hurricanes, especially when it comes to livestock and crops and that kind of stuff, can you tell us a little bit about what that means for your family and how you keep yourselves and your animals safe?
Oh boy. So yeah, I have PTSD with hurricanes. I'm going to be honest. My second year after marrying my husband, we had one of the worst hurricanes we've had in 100 years. And it was Hurricane Ike. And Hurricane Ike brought a 20-foot hurricane storm surge onto our farm and ranch. My we had rice in the field. Like, I remember being on the combine to 2 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't have kids yet, thank God. And we got the rice. That we didn't get all the rice out of the field. We evacuated cows as far north as we could. I mean, I remember you could actually hear the storm coming. Like, you could hear it. It was a really deep roar sound, but you could hear the storm coming before it was 2 days before it got there. And the storm surge was actually coming up around us before 2 days before the storm actually got there. And we were evacuating cattle, moving them out of the water, swimming cows out. We were pushing them north as far as towns we could, ranchers all around us, because around us, there's several ranches. There's actually about 25,000 head of cattle around us. Everybody was doing it. So you just see lines of cattle just going up highways, main highways and stuff. You can't trailer them out, because typically when you have a hurricane, they evacuate people. So you have cars on the road and stuff, so you can't get trailers in to move cattle and things like that. So your best bet is just to have a cattle drive and move as far as north and cut fences and put them all together with all their ranches. That's the importance of branding too. A lot of people, get upset because we brand our cattle. Well, that saved us in that instant, because we mixed them in with 25,000 cows. And when we came back after the storm, all that was left was my doorsteps, and there was no fencing for miles. All the fences was gone. We learned in that storm that cows can float. So cows actually bloat. And in the storm surge, a lot of the cows survived. Calves did not survive. Bulls, they don't bloat as well. So the bulls didn't survive as well in storm surge. So we learned, a kind of a valuable lesson there, that your cows can float, but bulls and calves cannot. And when we came back, there was 25,000 head of cattle loose across our counties, and it took us months on horseback to sort all the cattle, get them back to the ranchers. And of course there was salt water everywhere because of the storm surge. So we that's how we ended up with 2 fire trucks on our farm, because the fire trucks were used to actually fill up water troughs on highways and stuff to hydrate the cattle. And we were dumping hay out of airboats and Chinook helicopters and all kind of different stuff. So that was my very first experience. We had a livestock supply point where people were bringing in hay from all over the United States. Like, it reminded me of a lot of what I've seen on Helene. I think Helene was a lot worse than what we ever experienced. But I mean, there had been people who did not evacuate, and so they were doing the body search and stuff down on our ranch, because they had floated over from the island that's behind us. I'm on my phone. Are y'all there? Sorry, I had a phone call. But anyways, it was devastating. So that was our first worst hurricane, that I'd ever experienced in my life. Was Ike. We still have 2 barges on our property. So the kids play on the barge. The barge are in the middle of the field. I can't really move them because they're too big to move. So, and then we've had Hurricane Harvey, which dumped 60 inches in less than 24 hours in our area. And again, we got to deliver. I got to be up in a Chinook helicopter to help deliver hay to all the different ranches, because the military is great, but cattle move. And so the ranchers went up into the Chinooks to be able to show them where the cattle should be up on high ground. And we got to dump round bells off the back of Chinook helicopters. So that was pretty interesting. But yeah, I can tell you how to properly load round bells into a Chinook and properly drop things out.
So is a Chinook the one with the big ramp in the back? Do you just roll the round bales down and hope that no cows are underneath them? Or I'm kind of, my mental image is pretty horrifying.
So the military, They said that was probably the best training they ever had for military, because the pilots, they were like, I honestly almost got sick several times. They were maneuvering that thing where they could angle it down and we could see the cattle out the back end. The cattle just, they didn't have anywhere to go because the water was surrounding them. So they were on little islands. So we just angled it and we were all tethered into the thing so we wouldn't fall out. But it was like vertically. And when they would tilt it like this, it would just roll out the back. And no, we never hit any cows. Cows just like watched it drop and they're like, oh, food. They started eating.
Cows hit that emotional limit pretty quickly, usually, where they're just like,
Yeah, where did that come from?
it's the end times. I don't know. Cows, I mean, that might just come because you fed them 20 minutes late or there's round bales falling from the sky. Like, I feel like the cow, it's the same level of terror. And I hadn't really thought about, I mean, in the Midwest, we get a fair amount of flooding, but we don't deal with the salt water, and that's a whole nother aspect of the whole thing because, I mean, at least with flooding from fresh water, like, that water's dirty, but they can drink it if they have to.
I'd much rather be flooded by fresh water than salt water. That surge water was, oh, God, it was horrible.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's just as dirty as fresh flood water.
Yeah, it drowns the crops, and then obviously when you get a heavy amount of salt water across your soil, that we weren't able to grow rice for about 5 years after that hurricane, because the ground was too salty. And then way after the storm, after Hurricane Ike, we actually did not put the cattle back on our ranch. We had to lease land up north and like haul what cattle we had left, and we kept them on there for a couple of years before bringing them back. And the way we got all, our Texas Department of Ag had operations, no fences, and so we had all kind of people from all over the United States coming to help build fences back on everybody's property. Our biggest group that helped us was a college group. I think they were from Wisconsin, and I'm still friends with them on Facebook today. And then an Amish group, Mennonites. So the Mennonites and Amish came and they lived in our community building for months. And they got their taste of being in the marsh because we had them on Marsh Masters. Because to build fencing in marsh, you have to do it off airboat and Marsh Masters. It's not something you can just drive a pickup truck across a road and rebuild fences. You got to float out in the marsh and build fences out in the marsh with the gators and the snakes. So it was interesting. And plus in our area in the Galveston Bay, we have something called flesh-eating bacteria. So that water was full of flesh-eating bacteria. It was crazy. So
And these people were volunteers. That's pretty impressive.
but hurricanes, yeah, I can tell hurricane stories for days. I mean, and the mosquitoes afterwards, that was another thing we had to fight. And then we were fighting loose cattles for months. I mean, it was just, and some of these cows actually floated across the intercoastal canal onto our property. So they came from everywhere. And across our farm was nothing but beach houses and toilets. And I mean, we had half the EMS that came from the island peninsulas behind us had floated up. So we had like an ambulance and all kind of different stuff. Jet skis. We actually were the proud owner of like 3 new jet skis. So
Anything that's not branded, right? You get to claim it once it washes up on shore.
I don't know how many ice chests there were. My father-in-law had an ice chest collection going on.
I have to say, Nikki, normally I would say that fires are my least preferred natural disaster, but I feel like as a farmer, hurricane is getting right up there.
Fires are pretty bad. At least with hurricanes, you can kind of see it coming. You can almost get things out of the way if you can. It just depends on the storm. Fires, there's not that opportunity if a wildfire starts. I mean, I've seen those fires in North Texas and California and stuff. And, what happened in North Texas was just, it was wild this, last couple of years. So
Yeah, it's interesting how people from different areas all have something they find scarier, because I know we were talking at work about it, and, I have all these coworkers from California that are like, "But how do you deal with a tornado?" And I'm like, "Well, it comes through and then it's done." Like, yeah, they're dangerous and they're messy, but, like, 10 minutes, it's over. Hopefully. unless you get a huge burst of them. But like, it's not like a fire, or a hurricane or something where it's a year later and you've still got, or what, 10 years later and you've still got barges in the middle of your field. Like, it's not.
Yeah, I still find a random toilet every once in a while too.
Nikki's scrap pile is much more impressive than ours.
People are always like, "Where the crap did that come from?" I'm like, hurricane.
Maybe what you ought to do is turn those barges into Airbnbs and then just retrofit them with like the toilets you find, the coolers, whatever, just bleach everything and start an Airbnb.
My husband and I call them assets, so whenever we run low on money, we'll sell them, get rid of them, scrap iron. So, but yeah, I've had several questions like, "Well, could you put the cattle on them and float them out during a surge?" I'm like, I mean, technically, I guess. I mean, I never thought of it, but possibly. But our strategy is always just, cattle drive as far as north as we can, and hopefully we get them out of the surge range, and that's not always possible, but their cows are smart enough to get up on high ground. They usually do. So, but yeah, hurricanes are crazy. Yeah, I've been through 7, 8 of them, I think, at this point. Tropical storms, hurricanes. I mean, I saw on the weather there might actually be something brewing up here in the next week or 2, and I'm like, "Seriously, come on, hurricane season needs to be over just soon."
So I think, Arlene, am I right that this is the second guest we've had on who faces this next issue?
Maybe, yeah.
Another thing that we do not deal with up here is alligators. I find this one funny too because I know people who are afraid of, like, we have rattlesnakes in Northeast Iowa, not many at all, and people freak out about that. And I'm like, but versus an alligator, a rattlesnake's not going to eat you. Like, that's
And we have rattlesnakes too, so and we have alligators actually on the beach too, is what's crazy, and we have rattlesnakes on the beach as well because the beach is on the back part of our farm, so we literally can, go from normal looking land to the beach, the ocean on the back part of our property. But yeah, the alligators, there's something, we have a few hundred of them on our property probably.
So, do gators and cows, do they have an understanding, or do you have to try to manage gators? Like, what's kind of your relation? Yeah.
We do manage them. We have a hunting season in Texas, but it's only 2 weeks. That is it. And it's in September. So you probably saw my video with the Texas Gator Festival. That festival celebrates that 2-week hunting window, and not everybody gets tags to hunt them, only landowners do. So we do get tags for our property. And not every year do we hunt the alligators. It's only if we have a nuisance one that really just needs to go. And usually when they get over a certain feet, about 10 foot, that's when they start taking calves because they're big enough to do so. And we'll set a trap and try to get that 10 to 12 footer out of there.
I'm sorry, Nikki, I'm going to interrupt you. I live in a place where people freak the fuck out about coyotes, and like, they can do damage, but you're talking about a 10-foot alligator. Like, that is,
Okay, y'all want to hear the best story?
even I would have a hard time being real defensive about not killing a 10-foot alligator on my property.
So you got to wait till September.
My husband is fearless. He is one of those people that does not. I mean, he thinks about safety all the time, but I don't think he thinks about his own safety sometimes. I mean, he just does it. But we set a trap one year for. Sometimes we'll have people that want to come hunt them, and we set for somebody else, but that person didn't show up. So we had this huge rain. I mean, it was a 12-inch rain in like a day. I mean, everything was flooded on our farm. The roads were covered in water. He had set this trap the day before, and the water came up and it was over the road. And of course, a gator went on it. And he's like, "You want to kill an alligator?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'll kill an alligator with you." So me and my husband and a couple of other people came with us, and we went out there, and I had to wade in the water to get to the alligator. So my husband hands me the gun. He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna pull the line, and when you see his nose come up above the water, shoot him between the eyes." And there was all kind of
And how close are you to the mouth? at this point?
10 foot.
Okay, yeah. Like close. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the water with this gator. I'm in the water with it. He pulls up the line, and of course I shoot it, and I hit it in the snout, and I piss it off.
Oh my God.
And it swims between my legs. Like, it literal I feel it go it hits my leg, and it starts doing the death roll between I start saying every cuss word you could think, and I throw a loaded gun at my husband. Safety off. Throw a loaded gun at my husband, and he calls me some names, you know. Hell, what the hell are you doing? You just threw a goddamn loaded gun. I'm like, well, you just got me in the water with the damn 11. It was 11 foot 8 inches.
Oh my God.
Okay, so now, Nikki, I have a couple more questions. When we trap things,
It did get shot.
does it have a rubber duck in its mouth?
Yes, it did.
Oh my God. Arlene, I don't know if Canadians know how weird Texans are compared to the rest of Americans, but I was listening to a podcast yesterday where they said that Texans are the Australians of America, and they are not wrong. Y'all are crazy.
Yes.
A, what caliber do you use to shoot an alligator? And B, what kind of trap do you use on an alligator? Because, I mean, here we have like those have a heart spanker traps for like raccoons, and I'm just picturing what a have a heart trap for a 11-foot gator would be like.
Yeah. No, it's not a trap. So you take a cane pole, and if you want a big gator, you take the cane pole and you put it up higher, and you hang a nasty ass piece of chicken off of it. I mean, it's got to be stinky because they got to be able to smell it. So it's dangling above the water. And so to get a big gator, you want it to jump up out of the water, grab it, and then it's got a big hook on it, and the hook kind of hooks in the back of the mouth of a gator. And it stays on, it's like on a big fishing line. So when you come back, and you just reel it in like you fish a fish, or pull it in and you shoot it.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. That's the goal, right?
So yeah, some people have shot it with bow and arrow. My daughter's shot small one was a little 22 pink rifle, or a little bit bigger caliber rifle. So and they got some pretty thick skulls, so sometimes it takes you don't wanna, like, if you're wanting to keep the hide and stuff, you try to use the smaller caliber so you can, like, not have big holes and things in it, but
I guess if you put a bigger hole in it, you could put like a beer can holder right in the top, might be real nice. Just a whole can koozie with a whole gator
But
attached
you
to
want to
it.
get it in 1 or 2 shots usually.
now when we're out rounding up cattle, we actually do keep rifles hanging off the saddles and stuff just in case we come across. It's not the gators that would kill us, it's the feral hogs in Texas. They actually will kill you, and we actually had a woman die down the road from us because she got ate by feral hogs.
There's another thing to be scared of.
It made national news.
I feel bad that I'm laughing this hard about it, but
Wow.
we talked. I'm sorry, Nikki. Yesterday we were interviewing this very put together and proper British lady about her cookbook, and today we're talking about it's not the gators that'll kill you.
I mean, I'm not scared of the gators. I'm more scared of the feral hogs behind my house. If I come across a pack of feral hogs, they will come after you on your horse. And of course, your horse ain't going to sit there taking, they're going to either buck and take off with you and leave you on the ground and get ate by the feral hog. You know, we also have bobcats too. So.
Will the hogs also go after cattle?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they'll eat anything. I mean, they destroy the rice crops, they destroy our waterways, our you know, they put I mean, they're disgusting. Like, if we are trying to trap, we will kill 180 hogs out of one rice field in a day.
Wow. Is there a season for them, or because they're a nuisance animal? Yeah.
No, they're invasive, like,
Wow.
dead hog is good hog, so and no, we don't eat them because they're disgusting. They carry diseases, so
And are these like descendants of domesticated hogs that escaped, or are these like straight up wild?
They're a combination of domesticated and wild. They were brought in Mexico, I think, is the history of it. I don't. My husband knows the whole history of that. I'm not as feral hog savvy as he is.
You don't like them, yeah. Yeah.
I just know that dead hog is good hog. Yeah, and I've killed plenty with the hood of my vehicle, so not on purpose. They will run across highways, and I'll kill a bunch with my truck. So that's why I drive a big pickup as well.
I mean, even to be honest, domesticated hogs can be pretty nasty goddamn animals. So wild just seems.
Right, and we have show pigs. That's one thing that concerns us with show livestock show pigs is them being contaminated by the feral pigs because feral pigs will come up to try to because they'll smell them and stuff, and they could give them diseases and stuff. So you don't want that to happen. But yeah, feral hogs they eat everything.
Okay, so a face-off between a feral hog and a gator. Who wins?
Oh, depends on the size of the gator. Well, so I mean, if anything, so alligators are not as aggressive as crocodiles. So people get confused with that. Alligators are actually, whenever you splash water and stuff, a lot of times they'll run off. Now, if it is mating season or they just came out of hibernation, that's when you've got to watch out because that right after winter and they're coming out of hibernation because alligators do hibernate during the winter. They don't eat very much and they wake up, they're hungry, they start eating whatever they can grab. So that's um, but like I said, the smaller gators, 4, 5, 6 foot, they don't scare me that much. They can get a dog, so we have to watch our dogs, make sure they don't get in the water. Obviously, I don't let my kids just swim in the canals. But for the most part, we don't mind the smaller gators. Like they don't really get the calves and stuff. It's like I said, it's the bigger gators. Now we did lose probably about I would say we probably lost 4 calves this year due to alligators. And it's I know it's 4 calves, but people will probably sit there and think we lose like 20 or 30, but it's not the case. So yeah, I'd much rather an alligator than a snake or a hog. And we have some deadly snakes, and I've been bit by snakes before too. So
So many things to be scared of.
I think the most scared I've ever been of alligator the most scared I've ever been of alligators that time, like I said, my husband took me hunting in the water with one, or when I'm moving, they'll get out in the rice field and you go to move a rice tarp out in the field because tarps are what you kind of control the water with on levees, and they'll hide up underneath the tarps. One time we were working cattle and we had I don't know, it had to have been about 11-foot gator. It was underneath the cattle trough and we all thought it was dead. Like the cowboys were like, is that thing dead? And I'm like, I don't know. And so they rode up there and one of the cowboys went to go rope it to pull it out from underneath the cattle trough. It wasn't dead. So it started death rolling. We had it behind a horse dragging it across the field.
Y'all are nuts. That's all I'm going to say about it. Nikki, do you think if in some bizarro science experiment gone wrong, if you crossbred a gator and a wild hog, would that actually be the worst animal on the face of the earth?
That would be a nightmare. Hogs can swim. See, they're almost like damn it.
Wild hogs have tusks too, right? So if you had a gator with tusks that could run,
Yeah, that's a bad combo.
2 thumbs down.
Yeah, and gators can run pretty quick on land. They just don't run very long or very far. So
Same. So I know in a lot of places, as a landowner, if you have a nuisance animal, even when it's out of season, you're still allowed to shoot it. Does that apply to gators, or is that a...
no, we can go to jail for that. Yeah, we're not really supposed to touch them or any of that stuff. So I mean, we have wildlife officers that can come move them and different things. Most of the time, if you just shush them, they'll just kind of get out of the way on their own. So, but I have gators on my front porch all the time. So,
Move along.
I mean, if it's small, we'll just pick it up and throw it back in the ditch.
Maybe that Airbnb is not a great idea. Somebody comes to stay and you hand them just a whole stack of papers to sign off.
Yeah, don't touch the wildlife.
Maybe just don't touch anything would be better.
I mean, I want to get a license to where I can like own an alligator. Like that's my next adventure that I want. I literally want to like raise a baby alligator. So have a pet gator. But I think they're pretty hard to get those licenses.
And then you have to tell it apart from the others. I mean, you'll have to identify it somehow, right?
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out how you could ear tag one, but I guess maybe you'd have to brand it because I don't feel like they really have ears.
No, you tag their tails, so you can actually punch a tag in their tail, and they actually do that too. Like wildlife services will actually put trackers and tags and different devices on them to just manage how many alligators we have, because technically they're considered endangered, even though we have way over the population.
On your particular property. Yeah.
We also have something called alligator gar. It's a prehistoric fish that gets up to 6 to 10 foot long as well, that looks like an alligator. Those kind of scare me when I'm kayaking through the canals.
So are they like a gator but without the legs?
That's exactly what they look like.
Oh, that's also terrifying.
Do you have alligator snapping turtles too then?
We have all kind of different turtles.
That's awesome. Now I actually am a little bit jealous.
just for the turtle part.
I bet y'all have good bats down there too. Texas gets way better bats than Iowa does.
I think Florida has more than we do, though. I gotta give that Florida's got the crocodiles and the alligators. We just have the alligators.
So, Katie, are those all your gator questions?
I go, this is actually a parenting question, Arlene. With the gators, alligator gars, alligator snapping turtles, rattlesnakes, whatever other snakes, wild hogs, presumably wild dogs, random cows, toilets, whatever the shit. How old are your kids before you let them out of the house? Are they like they're 17 and they're still not allowed off the front porch, or?
Oh no, they've grown up with it. So my children know the limits on alligators and hogs and different. I mean, my oldest daughter, she's killed the most feral hogs probably in our family. My youngest daughter actually shot an alligator this year. So I mean, they both hunt. They're not afraid to get down in the water. They're barefooted. They're feral. That's why I call them feral. I mean,
Did we talk about how old your kids are?
my youngest is 9, and then my oldest is 14. Both girls can drive tractors. Both girls can drive tracos. Both girls can. My oldest probably could do a haul truck. So I mean, they can do it all. They've been driving since they were 5 on equipment.
So when we're talking about kids, we're also talking about them showing livestock. And I know that Katie has been wanting to have people on to talk about showing livestock because she's both intrigued and I think a bit scared to get her kids started because they're a bit younger than yours. So you already said they show both pigs and cows. Is that right?
They have showed. We have rabbits. I hate the rabbits, I'm gonna be honest. That's my least favorite show animal. Just because you have to have so many of them. And actually, we're probably fixing to get out of the rabbits soon. They do cattle. They have done pigs in the past. They don't have pigs currently. They have done goats in the past. But that's the extent. Yeah, mostly cattle. Both started showing at the age of 5. Because our county show allows them to start showing at 5. That's one of the few shows, the whole state of Texas, that allows it. Most shows is 8 years old. This will be the first year that my youngest does the major livestock shows. So the major livestock shows are Fort Worth, San Antonio, Houston, Austin. So we're going to do all the majors, and those are in the spring. Starting January. So you're going to see a lot of major livestock show content pretty soon. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy holding down a job and a farm and a ranch and showing. And of course, both girls are doing basketball. The kid activities pretty well are consuming our life currently. So we have decreased actually farming because of the kid activities. So we don't farm as much. We actually have leased out most of our property to another farmer to do the rice. And so if we do rice, it wouldn't be very much right now. And then when the kids graduate, we'll try to go back and to do it. So right now we're mostly focusing on the cattle ranch and kids.
Yeah. So when it comes to the livestock side of things, how has your role changed as they've gotten older in terms of like what as a parent you're doing to support them, like when they were 5 versus like now that they're a little bit older?
For the livestock showing, they do it on their own. I mean, when they were 5, obviously, they could not do there was limitations because they could not lift a lot of different things. Obviously, they can't break the cattle on their own, but we train them. That was part of the parenting process at livestock show is working with your child to work with that animal to teach them that responsibility of how to wash their cattle, how much to feed them, how many times a day, what to look for when they're sick and, when they need to go to the vet and different things like that. So both girls, this last show that we did here recently, both girls bathed their cattles on their own. They put their own halters on, they take care of their own stalls. Like my husband and I's job is mostly to get them there and make sure that they have all that they need and let them do the rest. So we don't hold their hands. That's their project. They better do their project. And I feel like teaching your kids to work like that makes them better adults. So, because if you do it all for them, then they're not learning anything. So whether they win or lose, that the responsibility part is part of the showing. So
I know I found too they learn so much from each other, right? Like I've watched my daughter, have those mentors who are 2, 3, 4 years older, and like they're then teaching the younger kids and showing them how to do things, and taking turns or going to the wash rack together, all that kind of stuff. It's really neat to watch the older kids teach the younger ones in those programs.
yeah, my oldest daughter helps my youngest daughter all the time. And this last go around, my youngest daughter was the successful one in the show, and I was very proud of my older daughter for supporting younger sister because my oldest daughter got bottom of the class, and my youngest daughter, I mean, she got first in her class, and she won champion showmanship person, which I was just like, holy crap! I didn't even know she knew how to do that, but she did.
She turned it on for that day.
She did, and her cow, Dolly Parton, I mean, she and Dolly Parton are quite the pair. We actually ended up, you know, we were back and forth on whether to pull her from the auction or not, and then at the last minute, we could not pull her from the auction, so grandmother bought her back so that she could show her at the next shows because she's doing so well with her, and she was the smallest cow in the whole show. And so she's still got quite a bit of growing ahead of her, and she's gonna be perfect for the next show. So we're hoping she does pretty good in the next one as well with her. Um, but yeah, and then like I said, we got Brahmins going to the major livestock show. Probably got about 9 show cows near the barn right now. And so I don't know if y'all saw the recent video that my oldest daughter knows how to weld, and she made a cow walker that goes behind a tractor so she can actually tie up 4 cows at a time and walk 4 at a time to get their exercise during the day. And so that was her last project she just got through doing.
That definitely makes it more efficient because training that many animals one at a time, it takes a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then we got basketball going, so she has practice every afternoon till 5:30. She's also an FFA officer. My youngest daughter is also in gymnastics and basketball, so we don't get home till 6, 7 o'clock in the afternoon. So you got like an hour window to work with those animals before you literally got to go in, finish up homework, go to bed, and it's 9, 10 o'clock before we're going to bed and start it all over again. So I mean, yeah, it's exhausting.
Nikki, I don't know if you mentioned, does your husband work off farm as well?
Yes, we're both work for the same organization too, is what's funny.
Do you work for state extension service then?
We do. We're both county agents.
So I don't know if we actually said at the beginning, and we should have. Maybe people saw in the title before they downloaded the episode, about your social media content. And since we're, mostly an audio medium, I will say that if you've ever seen the videos with the person in the house coat and the curlers in her hair talking about farm wife life, then that's Nikki. So where do you come up with all of your ideas? Because you are prolific. And I was telling Nikki before we started recording that my husband just sent me one of your videos like yesterday because he thought it was funny. And I was like, do you know I'm interviewing her tomorrow? And he was like, no, I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, every video I made in the house with the house coat on is based off of a true story.
Okay, now what's the story?
I mean, it's just my daily life. Like most of the time, I don't catch the things on camera that would probably make people like wonder what the hell's wrong with these people. So I'll reenact it with
I love the fact that you also reenact the other parts in some of the videos because I'm guessing maybe your husband doesn't want to always reenact it, but then you, as your husband, is a pretty good.
No, yeah, yeah. Like my husband, if I recorded everything he actually did, no, he's getting better because at first, when I first started the social media content, I think my husband thought, like, oh my God, you're absolutely nuts. Like, why the heck are you doing this? Honestly, I didn't know why I was doing it. Um, the whole reason I started making content is because my daughter had just got a cell phone, and it was right after COVID or right during COVID, I guess, and she's like, "Can I download this TikTok app?" And I'm like, no, not on your phone. No, you're not getting social media." She's like, "Yeah, but I wanna make funny videos." I'm like, "Listen, I'll download it on my phone, and we can start making funny videos together." So we did, we started making funny videos together, and then I started scrolling through some of these videos. I'm like, "Well, heck, I could do some of this, whatever." So I started filming a little bit of farming content and stuff like that. And there was this one video I was on a grain cart, and I was, talking about farming and different things like that. And of course you got your haters. And it was one of my first horrible, hateful comments. And it was a guy got on there, had put, women don't belong in tractors. They belong in the kitchen with a bathrobe on, with a baby on the hip, making sandwich for all the real men. And it kind of ticked me off a little bit. So so that's where the bathrobe came in. So I threw the bathrobe on and the children in the combine and started making videos of me in my bathrobe on the farm, and put his comment up there as a slap back. Cause I'm like, either I can come on and like rant and rave, or I can do something funny and just slap back. So I did. And and it went viral. So, and then I got like 20,000 followers overnight, and I'm like, "Well, okay, well, I'm on to something here." So I started making funny videos in my bathrobe. In the videos,
Guess I'll keep pulling out the bathroom.
yeah, so I keep pulling. I wish I had more time to make more skits, but it takes people to realize how much time it takes to make those skits, because I literally, you like you said, I have to like change parts. So I'll write out a script, and I'll do all my parts of me in just the bathrobe. And then I'll go throw the cow costume on, and the neighbor will drive by and I'll wave, and I'll do all the parts with cow costume on, and then my husband's costume. And I'm about to add 2 more characters in a future video pretty soon. So there's this next video where I actually had 4 characters in it.
So have you sent this original commenter a thank you note?
That person has since blocked me, so.
He probably got a few haters coming his way.
Maybe you could just dedicate a video to him.
Well, some of the comments, so if some of the comments are questions that are valid that need education. So I'll block the person's name out, because I don't ever want somebody to feel dumb or whatever. And I'll answer questions like that. But if it is a hateful person that keeps coming in my comments over and over again, then finally I'll just leave that person's name on there and do a slap back.
Let your followers deal with it.
Exactly.
I love it.
I don't even have to do anything anymore, because I'm just like, I can't believe these people come to my defense. They don't even personally know me. It's really neat how people will, like, follow you and gravitate towards your lifestyle, I guess. I don't know. I'm just a normal person that has a bathrobe and a bunch of alligators and cows. So, but I like I said, I do enjoy the skits. They're a lot of fun. And then I do enjoy the educational piece. Obviously, I'm an educator because that's what I do for my job. That's what I do. When I was a teacher for 12 years, like I love to educate. So that's my favorite part to do in life, is educate people about different things in agriculture. we have people that are 3 to 4 generations removed from farming, and then my favorite part about it is I've connected with about, I don't know, 10 different farm wives across the United States and the world. Because there's this one woman in the UK that I talk to all the time. Like, we just compare notes about stuff. Um, and then get to see other farming practices because, if you threw me in a dairy or something or cotton farm, or I wouldn't know, so I get to learn a lot from others as well. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, it is really cool how social media can connect people from so many different places. So from not being sure about even letting your daughter be on TikTok to you going viral, how do your kids feel about their mom being TikTok famous?
They come up with the skits now.
Oh, that's great.
And when she went to FFA in Indianapolis, it scares me in the same note that it's kind of neat. It scares me that people recognize my children in public. That part scares me. That's I try not to use their real names much on the videos. That's why I call them the feral children. Um, but in Indianapolis, she had FFA members from all over the United States coming up wanting to get pictures with her because they recognized her off of social media. So um, she said she had to at least give 20 pictures. I was like, well, I'm like, well, did you smile? She's like, yeah, I did.
That is pretty neat.
Yeah, and people starting to recognize me quite a bit in public as well. So, and my husband, he's starting to eat it up because at first he thought it was stupid. And now he's like, oh, turn on the video. I have something I need to say now. And I'm like, "Oh, God." And there's sometimes I don't even put it in there. I'm like, babe, you can't say that online.
That's going to get me blocked.
You're going to get us banned. So, because he's a very blunt, he's a very funny person. He's the person that likes to stir the pot and lick the spoon because that's who he is.
So while we're talking about kids, we often end up asking our guests to think about the time when they first became parents, because that seems like such a huge transition point for, I think anyone who welcomes a kid into their house. So when you think back to when the first feral farm girl arrived on the scene, how did life change for you guys?
It was hard. I think it's hard for every parent. My oldest daughter was born with a cleft lip and palate. Um, so, we had a lot of medical issues in the beginning, and that was rough for me. I wasn't able to like breastfeed her or any of that stuff. We actually had to feed her with a syringe at some point because her palate, she didn't have a palate. So she screamed 24/7 for the first 2 years of her life. So we went through several procedures, a couple of surgeries, and of course farming rice on top of it and cattle. And I was a teacher. Though it was rough. But of course, we managed, we got through it. So, I would throw her in a car seat on a combine and harvest rice after I'd get off of work from teaching. And that's how I would get her to go to sleep and get her to stop screaming. So, because otherwise she would never stop screaming because we never really knew what was wrong with her other than we knew she had a cleft lip and palate. And I'm assuming when she would drink and stuff, milk would just go up her nose or go off the wrong directions and things. So, you can't really tell it now when you look at her. I'm sure y'all probably can't tell that she had all of that. So, but when she gets angry, she also had a hemangioma that went from here all the way up her nose and her forehead. And it would get bright red when she was screaming. And when she gets angry now, it still gets bright red. That was some of the procedures we actually had to have because they kept thinking that hemangioma, because it went all the way top of her head and the back of her neck, was going to attach to her brain and prevent her from walking in the future. So we literally had to like go get brain scans and heart scans and yeah. So as a first time mom with a child with complications, it was not easy. And I can't imagine parents that have kids that have extreme complications. Does that make sense? Because, we would when I would go into Texas Children's with her and would walk the hallways and we would see the kids suffering through cancer or born with extreme disabilities and stuff, I didn't know how those parents were doing it, honestly. So, but yeah, I think just like any parent, it was hard. My second child, my boo baby, she was totally opposite. She never cried. She slept through the night. She still sleeps all the time. So, um, but second child was a lot easier because we, kind of knew what to expect. And of course, going through postpartum depression too, that wasn't easy. I don't know if all moms go through that, but I had it pretty bad with the first child. So
There's so many things going on at that time, right? Like with yourself and with a baby who has complications. Did you know through ultrasounds that that was the situation, or it was when she was born that you found out? Yeah.
yeah, and I had a rough pregnancy too. So I was in labor 36 hours, got all the way up to I think it was like 9 inches or close to 9 inches dilated, and her heart stopped. A cord got wrapped around her neck or whatever. So they literally pulled me straight into an emergency C-section. So, I mean, I didn't have time to think, and neither did my husband. And then when the baby came out, everybody was whispering and they took her away, and nobody told me what was happening. And they put me in the room. And when I was kind of coming to, my mother sat down on the edge of the bed and said, "Baby girl, I need to talk to you about something. When you see your daughter, she's got a part of her lip missing and stuff like that." And I'm like, and of course, first thing I do as a mom is I start blaming myself. What did I eat? What did I do during pregnancy? Did I do something wrong? So, um, but I think it's just a genetic fluke. And honest that I don't know if y'all seen that Duck Dynasty show where they had their daughter had the same issue. When that show came out, it kind of helped me a little bit because it made me feel a little bit better because they were kind of going through the same thing. So, um, but anyways, but of course, like I said, farming and ranching on top of a job and kids is not easy either. So,
Yeah, that is a whole lot of things all at once.
hmm and then farming just exaggerates
Yes.
because you got all the debt to go with it and everything. Things break down, combines on fire, kids screaming, cows are loose.
Yes, yeah. So, like you said, you're doing all of those things at once. What does that look like over the years in terms of childcare and how you fit everything in at different stages? When they were young versus now they're older, and now you're saying, like they're busy enough that you're even scaling back on the farming now versus when they were little. So what kinds of different setups have you had to make it all?
Growing up, I relied heavily on my mother-in-law and my mother. Um, my mother-in-law, we called her Meals on Wheels growing up, but she was also childcare on wheels. So we, we're a farming operation that didn't have the finances to hire a lot of extra help, with grain cart drivers and different things like that. So it was pretty much me, my husband, and father-in-law that did the harvesting as they were growing up. So I'd be on the combine, my husband would be either on the grain cart or the haul truck, and father-in-law vice versa. I like the combine. I always picked it. But my mother-in-law would come get the kids, or two, I would have the kids on the tractors with us, and we would just finagle the kids between the different carts and stuff like that. Anytime we worked cows, my mother-in-law would come get the kids and she would put them in the buggy, and the kids would be right behind us in the buggy with her driving. Or my father-in-law would do it because he doesn't like to ride horses. 'Cause, the older he gets, he doesn't want to be on a horse. He's like, "I'll drive the buggy with the kids and y'all get on horses and round up the cattle and with the cowboys and stuff." So, um, it was just family. Can't do it without family. So, and when they say family farming, that's what we are, a family farm. So, takes all of it. And my mom and dad obviously did not have a farm or ranch growing up, so they come out and they'll get on the buggies and put the kids on it and they'll drive out there too. And just, my mom's a vegetarian, by the way, so it's even funnier with her being on a cattle ranch
That's great.
because she's screaming out the window, "Don't hurt the baby cow!" I'm like, "Mom, they're getting eaten anyways."
What is your favorite thing about raising kids on the ranch involved in agriculture, being part of this lifestyle?
Just the fact that they know a whole wide range of talents, I guess. I mean, how many kids do you, I mean, not many kids get that opportunity. And I wish all kids had that opportunity. I mean, but both my girls know how to ride horses. Like I said, they know how to drive tractors. They know how to weld. They will forever have some kind of job if they need one. I don't know what they want to do in the future. I guess we'll just see. I told them, like, if you want to go to college, great. If you want to go in the workforce, great. You don't have to take over the family farm, but if you want to, wonderful, so we'll just see what happens. So,
Yeah, they've got lots of skills, so they can build on those.
yeah, and they're both straight A students, so they're both very extremely smart. So, my youngest is extremely too smart. Yeah, she's gonna be the one that I worry about when she gets older. She's gonna trick us. I know it.
Channel that energy, right? More cows.
Yes, yes. She has comebacks. I mean, yeah. The youngest has comebacks. I have to watch her. The oldest has comebacks too, but the youngest, I mean, she comes back quick. And I'm like, ooh, ooh, yeah.
So, Nikki, what is your biggest parenting struggle these days?
Currently, time management. Like I said, we are decreasing the rice farming. I think next year's rice farm is going to be pretty much mostly letting somebody else lease our land and letting them do it. Because there's just no way my husband and I have time to do the rice and keep up with their schedules and have full-time jobs, because the rice farming does not make money. Cattle's making money, cattle's doing a little bit better than rice right now, but rice farming it'll get you in debt quick if you get overboard with it. But yeah, time management is our biggest struggle because
Yeah, you're all doing a lot of things.
mm-hmm.
You're one of those families that needs a few more hours in the day, right?
I would love 3-day weekends. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah. So do you have any farm specific parenting advice that you would want to share with someone else?
Take it day by day. That's all you can do because every day is different. Try not to dwell on the big things or the small things. Just take each obstacle at a time, and you'll figure it out. So if you're going into farming and you haven't started with children, it's going to be rough, but just it's possible. I mean, if we can do it with 2 full-time jobs and rice farming and cattle and manage kids, I think, it is possible because, we did it or we're doing it.
So, Nikki, we ask all of our guests, if you were going to dominate a category at the county fair, what would it be?
Well, I would love to dominate the cattle category. Hopefully we'll get there one day. We have dominated the food cooking category with the girl. The girls love to bake, and they've won grand champion food several years in a row. So they do pretty good with their foods. They like the canned jellies, and my oldest daughter has won with the cinnamon roll apple pie several places. So she likes to do that one.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Is that the one where you make the cinnamon rolls and then you cut them kind of thin and put them on top of the apple pie?
Yes, except for it's pie dough, and it's not like dough. So they just take the pie dough and they makes it looks like cinnamon rolls on top, and
It's been a while, obviously.
it's really good.
But I'm glad to know I'm not just missing out on something.
Yeah, missing out on another delicious dessert. All right, well, I will go ahead and move us into our cussing and discussing segment. So if you're a listener and want to submit audio message for cussing and discussing, you can send it to our SpeakPipe, speakpipe.com/barnyardlanguage, or if you want Katie and I to read it, you can email us. Those links are both in the show notes. Katie, what are you cussing and or discussing this week?
Well, Arlene, you've been to my house, so you know that I'm a plant person, and I have a lot of plants. And over my kitchen sink, I have a Hoya that is very, very happy. And for non-plant people, it's a viney sort of a thing. And last night, the girl child wanted to see the flowers on it because she apparently thought I just had this fake plant stuck all over the wall for reasons. I don't know.
Could be.
And so I go to, pull a branch down for her, and I realize that it's climbed like up the kitchen wall, literally behind some pictures that are hung on the wall, back down. It's gone through the window frame before. It's like, twined into all these fairly permanent things in my house. And it is the happiest plant I own. It's in a pot that's way too small. And I realized that one of my big little stresses at this point is how many of my plants are happiest in places that they do not belong. This Hoya really needs to be in a space that's about 10 times bigger than it is, and in a pot that is reasonably sized and not like perched over my kitchen sink. But I can't move it because it is so happy there.
And it's connected to your house now.
Yeah, and it's literally a structural part of my home at this point.
No, it's part of the structure. Yeah. The wall will fall down if that plant comes up.
And I was just thinking about how many plants I've ended up with like this that are either, too big to go anywhere else, or only like the light in this window, or like, and obviously I have brought this all on myself. It's, it's not like children or a farm or something. Like, I could just get rid of them and, well, I mean, not this Hoya, obviously, because it is literally grown into my house at this point.
Yeah. It's holding the wall together.
But it's just one of those things. I don't know. I almost messaged you at like 3:30 this morning, Arlene, when I thought of this. So
Okay, you saved it for daylight hours.
yeah, well, because once I got the Hoya down, then I had to get it back up, which was just a whole nother matter.
Right.
Nikki, what do you have to cuss and discuss?
Oh, well, my kids bought me an electric chicken fence that went around my Chick-fil-A pen last Christmas. And most recently, my oldest daughter backed our buggy into the fence and ran it over and destroyed it. And so now I have chickens all over my yard and they're shitting all over my porch. So,
Okay, so chickens and gators on a porch. Does a small gator take out a chicken?
they can.
I just feel like free-range chickens and gators don't maybe go all that well together. But you said they like really stinky chickens. That's what makes them smell them.
Yeah, well, them chickens are like mini T-Rexes. I think they'll escape.
Yeah. They run faster on land.
I say they probably have common ancestors.
Yeah, they are ancestors, actually. But yeah, that's what I got accustomed to. I got chickens poop everywhere, like just everywhere. They're laying eggs in the cow feed bowls. They're laying eggs all over my porch. I mean, it's just freaking chickens. Kids destroy everything. Chickens destroy everything.
Can't have anything nice.
Yeah, can't have anything nice at our house. So,
I mean, that gator head was pretty nice, though. We're gonna have to make sure to clip that part of the episode for video.
yep, I have a few of those actually. I have gator heads all over my house. I have gator hides too. I have about 12 or 14 hides as well. So, planning that's my next goal is to actually make some boots because I've never had anything made out of these hides. So I want to actually make me some boots pretty soon. So,
Yeah.
Please tell me you made a trick-or-treat candy bowl out of one of these heads.
they're pretty heavy.
I mean,
They're pretty heavy. So, no.
I was thinking you could mount it as a mailbox on your porch. Or a layer box for your chickens. That'd be real nice.
You could. My husband has a smaller one because they actually sell them all over our town and stuff too. The smaller gator head. And he puts his business cards in it, so people can get their business cards out of the gator head.
That's perfect. That's what Katie was picturing.
All right, Arlene, what do you have to cuss and discuss today?
So I'm going to discuss something that I thought back, 25 years ago, I was leaving behind when I left my teens. Adult acne. Like, why? I thought that once I am solidly mid 40s. I'm 45 years old and I'm still getting random zits. Like, I thought we could like be done with this. Like, all the ads seemed to show it was a teenage problem and then you would grow out of it. But no, they still happen. The other day I got one of those painful ones in my ear, like where it's there, but you can't do anything about it.
Oh,
Yeah, I thought by the time I was in my 40s, there were some things I was going to grow out of, but still not.
Yeah.
Yeah, still a thing. Cussing that. All right, Nikki, we want to thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
thank you all for the invite. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Tell people where they can find you on TikTok, on Instagram, on all the places.
At Farm Wife, Farm Life 07. So if you type in Farm Wife, Farm Life 07, you should find me on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. And I just recently started the X. I don't know much about it, but
She'll be hanging out there in her bathrobe.
we'll see.
Thank you so much. It was great to meet you.
Thanks, Nikki.
Thank you for joining us on Barnyard Language. If you enjoy the show, please support us on Patreon with a donation.
Big thanks go out to our show editor, Krista Paffrath at the Rural Podcast Network.
Please rate and review the podcast wherever you listen and follow the show so you never miss an episode.
If you want to connect with other farming families, join the private Barnyard Language Facebook group.
We are always in search of future guests for the podcast. If you or someone you know would like to chat with us, get in touch.